Here's a story that I read from Rabbi Aaron Dov Halpern. He said that once he went to he traveled around the world, went to different Chabad houses, and he was in a Chabad house. I think that it was in Thailand, but I'm not sure. I don't remember what it was. But he was in a no, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was somewhere in America. Anyway, so he went to this Chabad house. That's right. That's right. It was in America. It was like in a Chabad house somewhere in Pittsburgh or somewhere. Anyway, so we went to this Chabad house, and it was a nice Shabbos meal. They invited people from outside, but there was one boy that sat there, and he had like bushy hair, and he looked, he's dressed very like sort of Indian, in like in from India style, and he just sat there with like didn't say anything, and he didn't respond to anyone, just looked straight ahead, and that's how it was the meal. And he just sat there. He didn't eat. Suddenly, at one point of the meal, there was a big picture of the Rebbe on the wall in this Chabad house. At some point in the meal, this fellow that was that looked like some sort of a zombie or who knows what he was, he stood up and he ran over to the picture and he threw it on the ground, took the picture off the wall, and he threw it on the ground and he started screaming, "Leave me alone, leave me alone, let me go, leave me alone." So they calmed the boy down and asked him, maybe they should call the police. They didn't know what to do. So they calmed him down and he told the story, what it was. It could be that he was even screaming, no, no, that's it. Leave me alone. That's what he's screaming. So they asked him what was going on. So he said, this fellow, that give me a minute, give me a minute. Yes, okay. He said that he went to India to learn meditation, and he got involved in some group. Then he was progressing. He was progressing over there, and there's several stories that are similar to this, but he was progressing in this. And suddenly one day from nowhere, they were in like they were in the middle of the jungle, this, and he was progressing. All of a sudden, one day he gets this tremendous longing and desire to see his parents, who he was totally, I say, separated from them. He didn't call them. He didn't talk to them. Not because he didn't like them. There was no. They were not. He was a new person. He was a new person. He was never born, and he will never die. Whatever they teach. He has no parents. You are your parents. You are this. So suddenly he has this tremendous desire to see his father and his mother, and he can't figure out why, and he's trying to get rid of this feeling, but it just grows in him more and more until finally, like just half an hour afterwards, he has this feeling, this tremendous longing and desire. So he leaves, takes whatever his few possessions that he's got, and he runs to the airport, takes a runs to the street, takes a taxi, goes to the airport, buys a ticket, and goes back to Israel. This boy says, "That's what happened. I bought a ticket and I came back to Israel, and here I am." And my father was very amazed to see me. I came and knocked on the door. He was very amazed to see me, and he said, very happy, and he hugged me and everything like that. And he said, "Am I happy to see you? What brings you here?" And I said, "I don't know." And my father said, "Have you got any plans, anything to do?" He said, "I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. I have no idea why I'm here. I just had this longing. I just couldn't bear it, and I wanted to come back, but I don't want to be here. I want to go back. I was progressing very nicely with this." So the father started thinking. Now the father, they're also not religious. The father's also not religious, but the father started thinking, and he said, "Well, I want to tell you something." He said, "When did this happen to you?" Said it happened to me. The whole thing happened to me like yesterday in the morning. So the father said, "Listen," he said, "the fact is, I was very worried about you, and we were out of contact, and I had almost forgotten, taken it off of my mind because there was nothing I could do. I couldn't get in contact with you anyway. I didn't know where you were, and so I just, removed it from my mind. But it was very difficult for me, and I told this to somebody from Chabad. They were in the street putting tefillin on people or whatever. He came to my office, whatever, and I told him the story. So he said, "Well, let's go to get dollars by the Lubavitcher Rebbe every Sunday." So I'm not a religious person, but what difference does it make? Maybe it'll help. Maybe I'm helpless over it. And so I went by the Rebbe, and the Chabad person that I went by, he said, "You don't have to say anything. Just go by the Rebbe and you get the dollar. But if you want to, say something about your son." So I went by the Rebbe, and it ended up that I was just so amazed, surprised by the Rebbe. I don't understand why. The Rebbe just gave me $1 and said blessing and success. And I went on, and the Rebbe called me back and said, "And this is for your son. Give me another $1. This is $1 for your son." That was yesterday in the morning. And now all of a sudden I see, here you are. It's because of this $1. So the boy said, "Well, I want to go back. I want to go back to India. I want to go." So they got into a long conversation. His father said, "Listen, why, stay here? Maybe we'll find something." He wants to go back. On the other hand, the same desire that brought him there seems that it was keeping him there. So that's what happened in the Chabad house, right? He stayed there for a few days where he was by his father. And finally, he went to the Chabad house. He heard it was for Lubavitcher Rebbe. So he went there to the Chabad house, and he was just sitting. He didn't know what to do. And he saw the picture of the Rebbe, and therefore he stood up and he screamed at the Rebbe, "Let me alone. Leave me go. I don't want to go. I want to go back to India. I want to be whatever it is, a guru or whatever it is. Leave me alone." And that's what he screamed to the Rebbe. That's what he said. Reb Dov Aaron Halperin told this story to Avner Shaki of blessed memory. Avner Shaki, that's a whole different story, which is a subject for another thing. But Avner Shaki, he was the head of what's called the National Religious Party. The National Religious Party was they were more national than they were religious, and they pretty much agreed with whatever the government said, because for their institutions, they had institutions and things like that. And at that time, the Rebbe was very adamant about this law, Mihu Yehudi. The Israeli government changed the definition of what a Jew is. It doesn't have to be according to the Torah. And this National Religious Party, they were instrumental in passing this law, this terrible law. And Avner Shaki was against it. And therefore, he was ostracized from his party. And he even went to the Rebbe and told him that, because he held like the Rebbe was very against this law. That he got, and the Rebbe said, "You don't have to worry about it. You're going to be the head of the party." Some language. And sure enough, against all odds, he became the head of the party. He passed away. And the law is still not officially changed also. But anyway, so he was very good friends with Chabad, and he was friends with this Aaron Halperin. And he said, "I heard this story." So what'd you hear the story for? He said, "I went to a Chabad house somewhere, I don't remember what, somewhere in the world, and I was sitting there, and there's boys that came in, like, hippies, bushy hair, who knows whatever, this, and they were making noise, and I said to the manager of the Chabad house, I said, "Why don't you tell these boys to leave? They're just making noise. They're not protected." And the manager of the Chabad house said, "I was once just like them." And he told me the story that you told me. So it seems that this young boy, that because of the $1 of his father, he eventually got interested in Judaism, and he eventually realized that that was his true identity, and that he eventually became a manager of a Chabad house. Amazing story about the power of the Rebbe and the Rebbe's dollar and the Rebbe's good thoughts. Have a good day with Mashiach. And I'll see you all tomorrow at 8:15.